Hey everyone, Corey from Aquarium Co-Op. Today we're talking about snails. We're back on the main channel. I've been doing a lot of, podcasting is one, but we've also been doing live streams over on the Jimmy of Aquarium Co-Op channel. So if you're watching this going, man, you guys haven't done one in months, it's because we're on the other channel. So make sure, you subscribe to Jimmy of Aquarium Co-Op because we have been doing pretty much live streams every week, multiple times a week. And we also have the podcast, so if you don't have time to sit here and watch me flail my arms around, go ahead and check out the podcast. You can go to the website, click the podcast button. You can download all those episodes, so when you're in the middle of nowhere, you can listen to them on a flight, do what you want to do, have all kinds of fun. But today we are going to talk about snails. It was requested by someone on the Patreon account. Not that we only look there, but it's kind of a space where people can suggest topics, and we need topics because we're doing multiple shows kind of every week now. So when it comes to snails, the first thing I want to get across is 99% of snails are incredibly good for our aquariums. And I really do mean that. Not just like, oh, just don't be afraid, but like given a choice, like in a perfect world, I would have snails in this 800-gallon tank. It makes my job so much easier. So much so, to illustrate that point, I've got algae buildup, and you can see it like right here. You see all that algae on the glass there? Right there, there's a streak through it. That's where I cleaned. The rest is all algae. If I had like nerite snails or almost any snail in there, that would be a non-issue. But I do have clown loaches, so I can't. But almost every other aquarium in my possession has snails in it. And even when I was out visiting a bunch of fish rooms, where was I that they were using a lot of snails? Oh, like Lucas Brett's and a few other fish rooms. Lots of snails, even breeding fish in there. And they're like, oh, I was like, don't they eat the eggs? And they're like, no, they're really not eating the eggs at all. So, I just think they're infinite beneficial. I think what happened is at the beginning of the hobby, not the beginning, but let's say in the last 30 years or so, there were snails that ate plants. So like the Colombian ram's horn snail. It's a snail that gets like that big around. It's got a stripe all the way around it. Looks like a ram's horn snail, but it gets bigger, and it's kind of a tan and then darker black color stripe. That thing will eat plants voraciously. It's also kind of illegal to move across state borders, so it's not very easy to get. And once they found out it was like a problem, it's no longer like legal to be moved around, so it's available on almost no wholesale lists, and like no plant vendors are going to have it. Most stores won't even have it. I've only ever seen it a handful of times, honestly. So there's that one that's kind of a problem when it comes to eating plants. That being said, because it's a snail that gets that big, it's amazing for your tanks with Oscars and other big cichlids, because you're not going to run plants anyway, most likely, and they will break down their feces, and they'll get into nooks and crannies where either a big plecostomus couldn't, or maybe they won't even let a plecostomus live. So, that's, if we can get our heads around snails are a good thing, and we get past the things like, people say like, well, I don't like snails because they look like slugs, or they eat my plants, or I just don't like them, or I get way too many of them. We can address like all of those things without just having a bias of like, well, I'm not having them. So the important part is, let's know that the ones that you're going to experience in your aquarium are going to be crazy beneficial. Like that's not even open to debate, really. That's just a fact. Like they are a vital part of ecosystems when it comes to an underwater system. So that is just like non-negotiable. But we can choose what types of snails and what kind of jobs we want them to do and how fast we want them to replicate and what kind of water parameters are they going to do well in, all those types of things. So first, let's address, the snail in the room here. And that is, oh my God, I had snails once, and now I had 1 billion of them. Most of the time, this is coming from a hobbyist who is new, right? You buy a plant, some snail eggs sneak in, one day you've got 500 snails, and you hop online, you go, snails in my planted aquarium, and then you cherry pick 5 out of the 500 posts that say, snails are bad, kill them, get rid of them, you're going to lose everything, right? And so you focus on the negative instead of the positive. But if we look at it, 1, snails eat algae. What's the number 1 problem with a planted tank? Algae. So they're helping you in that respect. 2, they will eat decaying matter. So if you have fish poop sitting there rotting, or fish food rotting, or a plant rotting, they will eat that. Now, when you're new to a tank or new to plants, you'll go, I just watched that snail eat that plant. I swear to you, I watched it happen. But what they don't understand is they might be watching it eat an Anubias, or not Anubias leaf, a Amazon sword leaf that's this big around, the immersed grown form. It's nice and big and round. They're going, I watched it eat that leaf. It eats plants. It is eating that leaf because it's dying because it was grown out of water. Now, that skinnier leaf that's coming out of the center of that Amazon sword, they're not eating, and that's because it's actually a healthy leaf. Now, there are some specific times when you might find snails munching on some plants. That would be, let's say you've got a colony of 50 snails, you've been feeding them really heavy because you like the snails or whatever, and then you just stop feeding them for 2 or 3 weeks. And then they may eat some plants, some of the finer leaf plants while they're dying. There's not enough food and they're starving to death, they will eat some before they die. That being said, we were intentionally growing that population, then we just cut that food source off, and then that happens. But in the case where they sneak your way into your aquarium, they just, like a ninja getting in there, you've only got a couple, they're only going to populate to the amount of food that's available. So if you're not specifically feeding them, they're going to go, hey, look at this, there's some fish poop over here. I could eat that and break it down further and make it even easier for bacteria and plants to utilize. That's a good thing. They can go, look at all this algae, maybe up on your glass. They're going to go, I want to eat all that. So let's say I put snails in there and the clownlets didn't eat them, and snails go in, they eat it all, and they go, wow, the getting's good. There's a buffet here. Let's make 1,000 snail babies. Well, in like 2 months, all those snail babies grow up, right? And now there's not enough food for 2,000 adults. There was enough food for 2,000 babies, but maybe there's only enough food for 12 adults, 12 snails this big. And so they're going to die back out. But meanwhile, that process between 1,000 and 12 takes a couple of months, and people usually freak out in that time period going, oh my God, I'm being overrun. And then what you find is a lot of people are trying to feed like their cories or something like that, and they put it in a wafer, and then it's covered with snails. And they go, well, I better put it in another wafer, and I better put it in another wafer. And pretty soon you're putting in 20 wafers because the snails are eating it all, but that's also just straight up a food source for those corydoras. So, a lot of times bottom-sinking foods can really contribute to that snail overpopulation problem. One of the biggest culprits in my experience has been either very low-quality wafers or shrimp pellets. They're so messy, like when they kind of absorb water and kind of just float out into the gravel and stuff like that. It's all microparticles for food, and so that's going to just further perpetuate the, oh my God, I've got more, and I've got more, and I've got more. But in a system that's being maintained relatively healthy, snails will boom and bust. So you go, I had none, now I have some, now I have too many, now I have some. And that it should level out there. And we can do things to help with that. If you have way too many snails, think about gravel vacuuming. Think about scraping maybe a little bit of algae. Let it naturally decline as opposed to just crushing them. Because when you crush a snail, like a lot of people say, well, I crush them every day and I can't get rid of them. It's because you crush that snail, it falls to the bottom, it becomes decaying matter, which is food for more snails. So we're literally like feeding the cycle. So that doesn't really work. That being said, a healthy amount of snails, very beneficial. Now, the most common one you're going to ever run into is the pest snail or the pond snail, which is actually my favorite snail. They're kind of like a little, they're round, but a little bit of point at each end, almost like a teardrop shape. And they can get decently big. I've gotten them up to about an inch or so, and they look really cool. And they're very easy going on plants, wicked good algae eaters, and they don't crazy reproduce because normally there's not enough food for them. So that's the one that sneaks its way in on plants typically. I actually love that. It's my favorite snail. If I could buy them like from a wholesaler, I would, and I would sell them to people all day long because I actually think that's one of the best. It can tolerate relatively low pH. It's not demanding on calcium. That's why they're pests, and they sneak their way in. They live through everything, which is awesome. I mean, that's it. It lives through everything, and it cleans for you 24 hours a day. I can't stress enough how much the cleaning aspect is important. They're little helpers in your aquarium. So that's the most common one you're going to run into. I love it. I definitely would leave them in. They can come in kind of like a yellowish color or a brown color, sometimes a little bit of a spotted color. All the flavors, all good. The next most common one I would say probably is the Malaysian trumpet snail. Now that's a cone-shaped snail, and it's a live-bearing snail, so it can reproduce very, very quickly, and that can overwhelm some people. But it's got some benefits to it that other snails don't necessarily have. Because it's got that cone shape, it loves to burrow down into gravel or substrate, and so it can go eat food way down in there and help break stuff down further, kind of like a worm. And it's also aerating and churning that substrate, keeping it from going anaerobic, which could be beneficial in some aquariums. Also, it's going to help deliver things to roots of plants. And so when they go crazy for people, a lot of times because there's a lot of nutrients and food and things like that down in that substrate that nothing has ever touched before, and now they're really they're really chowing down on it, and that's creating extra food. Not creating it, but they're utilizing something that you didn't know you really had. And so that's going to hit a certain saturation point. You're going to go, oh my God, I got 100 of these things, and they seem to come out at night because they're mostly a nocturnal snail, and it's gross, and it's weird. But again, if your tank didn't need 100 snails, they would die off after a couple of months. So if you're into it for 6 months, you still have 100 snails, those are doing some very beneficial things for you. So just realize that. If they're populating for a reason. So Malaysian trumpet snail, they're cheap. Like on our website, we sell them for like $1. I think you buy 10, we send you 12, and that'll get a colony going. The other good thing about Malaysian trumpet snails, because they go down into gravel and stuff like that, they can usually go in African cichlid tanks and other like Oscar tanks, like a lot of things, because they're only seen at night really. They're kind of like a janitor, a night janitor, a cleanup crew for you, which is really nice when you have some of the fish that are predatory or will mess with them. So also, they're about bulletproof. I've had them in buckets of gravel, sit in my garage for 4 or 5 years with no water, and then you put that gravel into the tank, and then they go, hey, there's a couple alive, and it can repopulate for you. And again, they just live off of very little amounts of moisture and gunk, mulm in there, and they go, ooh, I could eat that, and I could stay alive. And then, eventually another Malaysian trumpet snail dies, and it goes, ooh, I could eat that, and I'll sustain myself. If you left it for 10 years or in the baking sun or something like that, obviously they're all going to die. But Malaysian trumpet snail, common, easy to get a hold of, really like it. I'm a big fan. So then we've got like the ram's horn snail. These are kind of cool because they kind of come in designer colors, if you will. You can get pinks, you can get reds, you can get the browns, you can get the leopard spot, you can get almost like some albino-ish pink magenta-y ones. And they're a snail that gets to about the size of a dime, I would say. Maybe a nickel if you really get that grandpa snail going. And they're in a curly-Q shape, kind of that ram's horn. If you think of a ram's horn, how it curls up. And they are also a great cleaner, plant-safe for the most part. They lay clutches of eggs. They're not a live bear, so they have a clutch. And you'll see that little jelly sac maybe on the underside of a plant or the glass or something. They'll hatch out into little babies, and then if there's enough food, they'll grow up, and they'll be cleaners for you. So yeah, so that covers ram's horn. Those are most of those basic ones. Then we get into some specialized ones like the nerite snail. Now, the nerite snail is mostly found in brackish water or salt water. They live in full fresh, which is nice, but they've got like a special mouth that allows them to eat things like green spot algae, which is super nice because like nothing else on this planet pretty much eats that. And that's the one thing I would really love to add to my clownloach tank or my puffer tanks is a nerite snail. They're super good. We sell them on the website. I like the olive nerites, but they come in, they're not designer colors because we're not making them, but a lot of different varieties. They're like the onion snail. There's the tiger nerite. There's the baseball nerite, which is kind of the tiger nerite. And the onion. There's also, my brain can't think of them, but I know there's more. There's the dwarf ones that have spikes on them. So there's a lot of variety. They're all good at eating green spot algae. Now here's the kind of the cool part. If you have a problem in your tank where you're kind of overfeeding or doing anything like that, and you're going, I just can't keep snails in check no matter what. My daughter's feeding the tank, I'm feeding the tank, we're just overfeeding, it's a problem. The Nerite snail can't reproduce unless it's in brackish or salt water. So in your freshwater aquarium, it will not make more snails. It will lay eggs, so it'll lay these little white eggs on wood and glass and that type of thing, and you might have to clean that a little bit, but they won't hatch out. They kind of look like little sesame seeds, if you will, and they just lay those around. That's a good sign that it's healthy, it's enjoying life, it's doing its thing, it's eating, but you can kind of control the population with the Nerites because they only reproduce when you make the conditions available to them, which will never happen in a freshwater tank, and they're plant safe. Nothing wrong with that. So then we've got things like a mystery snail. Mystery snails are kind of a larger snail, and they're not that easy to breed. So they have a wicked big appetite. That's part of the problem with a mystery snail. A lot of people struggle because they are a big snail. They got a big appetite, and they usually starve them to death. And they'll starve to death in a plant tank, by the way, just because they usually don't eat plants, and they just don't get enough food, and they die. But what's nice about them, they get big, they come in all the designer colors, meaning we as hobbyists have made them in magenta and albino and blue and black and brown and gold and all these different colors. They even have different flesh colors, so you can get them with their antennas and all that, and they'll be orange, or they'll be like almost like a luminescent white, so there's some variants to them. And they got to crawl up out of the water and lay their eggs up above the water line. Eventually, after a week or so, they'll hatch and crawl their way back down, and that's how you would make more. So in your aquarium, if you have the water level pretty much to the top, it's very unlikely you'll make more. Very controllable. And I've been thinking about adding some more mystery snails to my life. I bred them for a little bit, and I think like one mystery snail per aquarium might be like a thing. Kind of like how you add one Plecostomus to an aquarium typically, or a lot of people do. I'm thinking, why not add one mystery snail? It's such a good cleaner. So look into those. I think Flip Aquatics is selling those, flipaquatics.com. You can get those from him, I believe. And then we've got things like the Japanese trapdoor snail. Now that's a snail that can go very cool water. I would say even maybe down into the 40s, maybe even down into 30s, but it gets a little hectic there. They're like the size of a golf ball when they get full grown, and they are a lie-bearing snail, so they just go, bloop, there's another snail, and they do that, so they make little ones. They're great for ponds and goldfish because they get so big, they really can't be eaten by them. Now the babies, they could technically choke on a baby, but usually if the goldfish is in there and it plops out a baby and it's tiny, the goldfish just goes yomp and eats it and can swallow it no problem. So they're nice because they can go very cool water. They're a lie bearer, so you can reproduce them if you want. I don't keep them in my home aquariums much because at tropical temps they don't thrive. They'll survive, but they don't really thrive. And if I was going to do a tropical, I would do a mystery snail or something like that. Then we've got some more specialized snails like the rabbit snail, and they get their name from their face kind of looking like a rabbit. They almost look like they have some ears, and they've got like a, their mouth structure almost look like teeth. And those guys are Sulawesi snails, so they're from where some of the shrimp come from, the Sulawesi shrimp. They like much, much harder water. They wouldn't even, mind a little bit of salinity in that water. But they're cool. They're a live-bearing snail, but they reproduce so slow, in the fact that, like, you might have a few of them, and 3 months later you have, instead of having 4, you now have 6. They are also kind of expensive, usually like $10 and up, but they've also got some of those cool colors in their body where they'll be orange or blue or polka dotted. They got a lot of cool things going about them. If you starve them, will munch on plants a little bit. They won't eradicate them, but they'll take a bite out of them. What else? For snails, we've got the assassin snail. This is a snail unlike most other snails because it's a carnivore snail. So that means this snail wants to eat meat. And so it could eat bloodworms, it could eat dead bodies, it could eat other snails. And that's typically what people buy it for, and that is to go in and eradicate another type of snail they don't like. Whether that's, I don't like this ram's horn snail, and I want to keep Nerite snails, so maybe I get rid of all my ram's horns, and then I put in the Nerites I do want, right? The assassin snail is kind of cool because they can burrow underneath the gravel, so you get that aspect of the snail, like the Malaysian trumpet snail. Not all snails do that. Most don't, in fact. And then the fact that they do eat meat mainly means they're plant safe. Now, there are rumors, and maybe even founded, that they'll eat a cherry shrimp or shrimp. They are a meat eater. I do think they're opportunistic. I think with a better food source, they won't. You see pictures of it happening. That being said, I've kept assassins and shrimp in the same tank and really never, ever seen it with my own human eyes. And so I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying it doesn't happen enough that it's like a chronic problem, and we as aquarists tend to blow things out of proportion. So if I have a colony of 500 shrimp and I have 30 assassin snails and 1 shrimp a month gets eaten, meanwhile the colony makes 500 shrimp a month, I don't consider that to even be worrying about it. So that's just me. But what else do I have to say? I got one left, I think, off the top of my head without taking your guys' questions. I've been kind of trying to give more of a presentation here than the standard Q&A format. But the last one is this Spixie snail. Now, this is a snail that's got a unique ability to it, in my opinion, and that is the ability to eat Hydra. So Hydra is kind of a nuisance, I guess is the best way I could put it. And it's a little, almost looks like a little anemone that sticks to plants or glass, and it's got these little stingers on it. Very tiny thing. Reported that it can kill fry, and it can eat some of your like live baby brine and copepods and other little good, tasty things in your aquarium. But it will go around and actually just eat those. But the Spixie snail can be a little bit hungry towards the plants as well. And for that reason, it's also a restricted species. It's not supposed to travel state lines. You won't really be able to order it online, or shouldn't be able to. But it is a cool one to kind of breed and make more of. And, you know, if you had, like if you have a big breeding facility and you're using lots of baby brine shrimp and you get Hydra cropping up every once in a while, having one tank with some Spixie snails you could bring over, drop into that tank, cure that problem, and then move on, that would be useful. But they're kind of a niche snail. But that just goes to show, I'm sure there's like 5,000 different snails that I haven't even touched on that all do quirky, weird things that just aren't super available in the hobby that I haven't gotten to play with. But in general, there's lots of different types of little Malaysian trumpet snails. There's some with like a little bit more of a rounded shell, some with a little more of a point, different patterns. And we just kind of lump all these things together because snails are snails, right? Snails are bad. We don't like snails. Get rid of them, kill them, feed them to puffers, do their thing. We just don't appreciate them like we might be able to, or we should, just because they've got a stigma going on with them. So at this point, I want to address any super chats, and then we'll grab some actual questions. So Jimmy, I know we got some super chats. Let's see if we can get those up on the, or read them to me or something like that. And we'll go with those, and then we'll start answering questions. And yeah. So
turn my mic level up here.
Jimmy's getting ready to go.
Let me get in the little corner here.
Yeah, he's there.
All right. So we have $5 from Kyle Weltner. $5 for the beard, looking sharp.
Oh.
Not a question.
Yes.
Thank
I
you for the
keep it
$5.
manicured with snails. You don't know that, but.
We got $1 from Nancy Harbor.
Thank you.
Another $2 from Nancy Harbor. Corey, I love pond snails. See you in October 14th in Michigan.
I will be there. That's next weekend. I go speak about puffers, and at that talk, I'll be talking about how snails are such good food for puffers. You know, they're going to meet their demise, but, you know, they're useful as a food source as well. There's actually African cichlids like the rhodocii cichlid that are a snail eater. There's lots of loaches that are snail eaters. So they're also a viable food source for quite a bit of things as well. So I know Jimmy's been pulling out some choice questions here. What do you got for me, Jimmy?
All right, so Jimmy S. asked, not me, but
Jimmy
what is
S.,
the
yeah.
typical lifespan of the snails?
That's a hard one. I think in our home aquariums, a couple of years. And what I say when I say that, it's that we'll kill them with lack of calcium, lack of food, put the wrong fish in, something like that. But I've had snails, grandpa snails as I call them, that live way longer than that, like 5+ years. I don't know that I've ever really tracked how long the snail lives. I just know that when they start getting names like, my wife goes, "Oh man, look at Grandpa Snail. He's out today. He's doing his eating." And he becomes a character in the family, and that goes on for years. Yeah, that's kind of a good thing. And I call them Grandpa Snails because usually they get pretty big, and we have like no calcium in our water at all. So usually they're getting white shells, and that's a sign that I haven't been getting them enough calcium and doing all that. And I always feel bad, but then I try a little bit harder going, I got to take care of Grandpa Snail. So...
All right, we got a question from Michael C. here. Any snails that can go with African cichlids at pH of 8.3?
My favorite would be the Malaysian trumpet snails because they can evade them for the most part. All snails will do well. Well, let me make sure that's a true statement. I think all snails will do well at a high pH with lots of hardness, but it's the fact that the African cichlids might kill them. I think assassin snails and Malaysian trumpet snails are your go-tos for that type of fish.
Okay, before we hit the next question, we got a super chat from Twin City Guppies, TC Guppies, for $5, just letting us pick your brain. Thanks for the knowledge.
Thank you, Twin City Guppies. If you guys haven't, check out Twin City Guppies. I've got 2 strains of guppies that he sent me. They're in my fish room, and I'm going to tell you this right now. If you don't buy them now, when I show them to the public, like when
they'll be gone.
30,000 people see them, he's going to sell out overnight, and you're going to go... Corey told me to go look at those guppies and buy them before the masses saw them. So that is your warning, because this is what happens, is we go and we visit something, we see something really cool, and then the entire internet goes, I'd like to have that. And, unfortunately, Twin City Guppies doesn't have 30,000 pairs ready to go. He probably has, my guess is 30 pairs, maybe, right? And so get while the getting's good.
Yeah, because you're the one that got me into leopard frogs. You may not know that, but on
I didn't know that.
Yeah, on a stream, you straight up said those look better than zebras. I was like, and I really
did you not know what they were before?
I did, but then they didn't stand out as much to me. But when you said they were better than zebras, I was like, oh,
I do
man.
think they're. I mean, zebras are cool, but I really like leopard frog plecos.
Yeah.
I think leopard frog plecos are a little more outgoing as well.
Yeah. So I contacted Eric after that.
Yeah.
All right. So KG Cichlids asked, can you explain the anatomy of an assassin snail?
The best anatomy I've seen, I feel like it's in Rachel O'Leary's video because she's got macro shots of like their little harpoon appendage. I've got a video on it where I could kind of see it going, but I'm not a crazy snail nerd. And Rachel O'Leary is. She really loves invertebrates, and she's done a lot of macro photography, and she's seen... I don't know if I saw it on her Instagram or where I saw it, but she's got pictures of it actually embedding the other snail and doing that type of thing. She might have sent them to me over my Facebook. Oh. But I think it's in her video, but check out her videos on it because I know she knows quite a bit about it. She was really playing with a lot of these inverts when they were brand new. Like I was just at that point a really small hobbyist, and this would have been back on like Planet Tank forums when like MG Gamer 9000 was importing a lot of stuff and she was selling stuff. And so they had a lot of time to really hone in on those. Shrimp were still new. And so that would be my source if I was, searching it up.
Now I really want to get my macro lens and sit there and feed the assassin snails.
Yeah, they're fun.
Just to watch.
You could do that. By the way, give us a like. And don't forget, all this stuff goes on the podcast. And we've got, if you like this format, what we just did, we are doing that on the podcast. And sorry to say, but there is episodes that will only ever hit the podcast. Because we're doing that, I'm really going to start investing pretty heavily into the podcast format. Not taking away from YouTube, just that in addition to. And if you're a person that needs to download stuff and listen to it while you're at work, and which if you're not doing that, you probably could be, and it's a super cool way to pass the time. So
we got a $10 super
Whoa.
chat from Avaria. Are mystery snails hard to ship? I have over 100 to get rid of, and there are no shops in my tiny town. Also, how can I deal with clutches? They laid 3 clutches, and I'm not sure what to do with them.
So you could ship them. You could ship the clutches. You could ship the snails. One of the best things to do, Avaria, is order snails, like order mystery snails from like Flip Aquatics or someone on Aquabit or something and see how they did it. And then you can learn a lot. But the best way, in my opinion, is to ship them in wet paper towels. Don't actually put them in water because they'll foul the water pretty quickly. So you just put them in a wet paper towel. You ship them. They do great. And, make sure they don't freeze to death, obviously. So you might have to use a heat pack depending on where you're shipping them to, or a cold pack in the middle of summer. And it's not uncommon for like a ROAK, a random act, RAOK, random act of kindness on like a planted form where people have a clutch. They'll just put it in a wet paper towel and they'll ship it out, and the person just pays the shipping. So, because really all the work comes from actually growing them, the clutches. You know, you're kind of like, what am I going to do with these things? And you might be able to charge like $5 or something, but yeah, you could look into shipping them and just shipping them to other hobbyists, and I think having a good time. That's what a lot of people do when they trade. You could also find someone else breeding mystery snails, and you could trade to get their genetics, where if they have purples with orange bodies and you want that and you have something they want, you could make that happen. And I don't think you're going to make a ton of money, but you will find good homes and you'll make a ton of people happy, and that is almost as good as making money. I say almost because sometimes you just got to make money, but making people happy is worth quite a bit.
Definitely true. Nisi put the podcast link there, and also you could download the podcast app.
Yes, we do have an app for both Android and iPhone, and just know this. If you want to be in on the ground running, like right now we put out an episode and about 2,000 people, well, 2,000 to 3,000 people download each one. I promise you this, like this time next year, that's going to be like hundreds of thousands. Like I'm really going to put some effort, so much so that like the sound equipment we're using right now was $1,100. Like I'm investing money into it, time into it. We've got Corvus Ocean, who's going to be a co-host. Like we're really putting in plans to cement that to be happening. And so yeah, if you want to be like, oh, you know, I was there from the beginning, you know, so go leave your review now on iTunes so you can be like, oh yeah, I left a review in 2017. Here you are in 2020. Oh, this new guy.
All right, we got a question from Adam C. Will puffers eat MTS?
Yes. I addressed that in my puffer talk. There's a stigma going around that MTS, Malaysian trumpet snails, that's the acronym for it, hurt puffer teeth. I've fed tens of thousands of Malaysian trumpet snails to a lot of variety of different puffers. I myself have never noticed a problem ever. I do think that is one of those things that we've blown that way out of proportion. I'm not saying that there was never a puffer out there that got a cracked tooth from a Malaysian trumpet snail. I just think that's more of the 1 in a million, not the, oh yeah, that happens all the time. So I think it's a great food source. They're nice and crunchy. They breed pretty prolific, and I would recommend it, yeah.
All right, Barbara Jackson asks, what's the best food for mystery snails?
Best food. My favorite was, and I say was because it's not made anymore, was the shrimp souffle by Rapashi. That was my absolute favorite. But since that's no longer made, I do like to use some Rapashi. And then, you know, if you want to run a messy tank, which I don't, but if you did, like Ken's Fish and some other places make it, like maybe Your Fish Stuff, they might have some spirulina calcium sticks. Those are actually really good for snails, but they're crazy messy. Like you'll have to do a lot of gravel vacuuming and a lot more maintenance. So I typically feed my snails lots of canned green beans, Rapashi, and then whatever fish food is left over from actually feeding the fish. So I always have fish in with the snails, and what gets past them, yeah, I would let them eat.
All right, I got a question from Glass Boxes, Joel. If I did want to reduce my MTS population given their livebearers, would one method to be to throw them in like a cucumber or something for them to latch onto, then take the whole thing out? Or
yeah, so you could do like, you know, the bait and switch, as I call it.
Yeah.
You put something in there they want to eat, and then they crawl onto it, and then you lift it out, and you put it like, we'll do that. I'll put a bunch in, or I'll put food in, and they go, oh, look, it's food. Let's go eat that. And then I grab my hand with the food, and then I throw it into like the puffer tank, and then the puffers go wild. You can buy traps, like Sarah makes a trap that I like quite a bit. You can use that. You can make one out of like a bottle here. This isn't the bottle I would necessarily use. I'd use like a 2-liter, but you can take a bottle like this, you cut it right here, so that you got this cone shape, and you flip that around so that it goes inside. So now you have like a funnel inside here. You drop some wafers inside the bottle. You put this in the aquarium. Snails go in, and then they have a hard time getting back out. You'll get some fish in there too, but then you just take the bottle out, take that top off, and go, okay, let me pour the fish out. All right, now I got all these snails in a bottle. Let me take them to my local fish store or give them to my puffer friend. Or, I forgot of another good use of snails. They're wicked good turtle food. Oh. Wicked good, because they got all that calcium for their shells as well.
Steamfod Aquatics with a $1 super chat.
$1.
I'm pretty sure that's not the only one. He usually does it like a spam of rain and rains.
Can't ship to Canada anytime soon. We are working on it, but Canada is a real humdinger when it comes to shipping. Like it's not easy. That's the answer. Is like they have set themselves up to make it difficult for someone in the U.S. to help you. I want to sneeze, and then I want to address Wild Nature's question. So wait, the sneeze is going away. I'll get halfway through the question. I'm going to sneeze. Best way to rid of bladder snails, which I got from your plants I ordered from you. Yep, no doubt that our plants probably come in with snails. We run all of our tanks with snails. If it was bladder snails, I would probably use, again, I wouldn't get rid of them, but if I had to get rid of them, I might use an assassin snail or get myself rent a dwarf chain loach and let it do its work, or one pea puffer, let it mop the place up, and then rehome it. That would be probably the way I would do it. That being said, it's kind of like saying, I got worms with the rose bush you sent me. And it's like, oh, man, yeah, awesome. That's actually a good thing. But, again, if they're growing out of control, like if you got 1 billion of these things, we need to address why we have 1 billion of them, because they're only going to populate to the food that's around. So.
All right, here's some questions here. Substrate or no substrate for a mystery snail breeding colony?
I would use substrate, but I would use either crushed coral to help buffer pH and stuff like that, or I would use aragonite, one of those two. And I just like having somewhere for the poop to settle so I can gravel vac it, honestly.
Yeah. Kyle Weltner with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Kyle. And it's an emoji of a snail and a taco.
Snail tacos.
Doesn't sound too good, but... All right, another one from Dominic Martino with $2 super chat. How did you guys like my local fish store, Aquatics Unlimited?
If that was the giant one...
Yeah, that's the giant one with the tanks lined up with the salt water, too.
So I kind of left that store saying I wouldn't be sad to have that as my local fish store. It had a lot of stuff. But nothing stood out to me. It was like, wow, that's insane. Haven't seen that before. I feel like they had everything bread and butter in massive quantities, but nothing where I'm like, ooh, that's neat, So I would not be sad, though, because they do have a big selection. They had a lot of dry goods. It's a great store. It's just not one, I wouldn't drive 3 hours to go to it, probably, but if I lived within an hour, yeah. If that was my best store I had, it's a good store. The most impressive thing I liked about the entire store was the way the tanks were laid out and the step they had for them, and then the motion sensor they had on the betta containers.
Yeah, you guys will see that in the video. I showed you. Yeah.
Yep, very you can see that. Yeah, so every store's got its own things they do really cool, and I always take pictures and document that going, ooh, how could I incorporate that into my life, So.
Okay, let's see here. I have brown algae on my plastic rock. Can snails work, or is there something else?
Snails will do it, yeah. Yep.
Okay. Quick question. Quick answer, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see their little, trails through it, and eventually they'll get to the bottom of it.
What would you put, snail-wise, for unheated planted vase or bowl?
If it's inside your house, not going to get too cold, I would do a Malaysian trumpet snail or a ram's horn snail. Is what I would do.
Running out of questions because you answered them too fast here.
Oh, my bad.
Will an assassin snail take out a mystery snail?
I've never seen it happen, but a lot of people say yes, and I don't know the definitive answer. So I would be tempted to say, when hungry enough, yes. With better alternatives, maybe it's going to take a while.
Okay. I don't like snails with small, round plate, flat shell. They propagate so fast. Is it a myth that snails are carriers of diseases and parasites?
No, that's not a myth. They can, but it's very rare.
Okay.
That's like saying, is it true that humans can carry the plague? Yeah, totally. The next human walks in here could bring the plague and kill us all. But the odds are very, very low. And snails in the wild are going to carry a lot more diseases and parasites than stuff that's coming from your fish store, your local wholesaler, farms, all that kind of stuff, because they don't want the parasites either. So they're doing reasonable measures to make sure that it's not a problem.
I'm pretty sure I missed this one. It's from Michael Trevino for $5. I just got a 180-gallon tank. What filtration other than a sump would be good? Also, good grow lights.
So other than a sump and good grow lights, if it was me and I was setting up a 180 today, I would use a Fluval FX5 or FX6 now, I guess. Yeah, I'm just my mind, FX5. FX6, and I would use probably two Fluval 2.0 36-inch lights. Is probably what I would do. Just because I know how to use them. I know they work well. I know I like them. I know the quality I'm getting into. And they're not crazy expensive. They're not cheap either. But I like it. You know, I'm using an FX6 on the 800-gallon. I'm using Fluval lights on the 800-gallon. And, yeah.
Is there anything that will eat snail poop? There's like a couple people
Snails?
asking. Snails?
Snails will eat it.
Okay.
And then things like goldfish, geophagus, any sand sifters, even apistogrammas, they're basically like micro earth eaters. They sift sand, corridoras. They're just helping it break it down one step further.
Okay. Fat Tire with a $5 super chat. I just paid Jimmy. Can't wait to see you guys Wednesday.
I will try. I have.
What's
so
Wednesday?
He's coming to his store on Wednesday, and I said we have to film an unboxing, which we do.
Oh, okay.
But if you guys weren't in my live stream on Facebook last night, I'm on like the waiting list to get my wisdom teeth pulled. So basically, they've got me on like antibiotics and pain meds, which I haven't taken any pain meds today. That's why I'm not as loopy yet. But
He gets a
I
little
can't
loopy.
drive, so Jimmy has to drive me around. But I got to get all my wisdom teeth pulled. But they were closed on Friday when I was at the dentist when they're like, yep, these need to come out. That's why you're having a little bit of pain. Well, not a little bit. It's kind of, I can't sleep. But that's why you're having pain. You got to get these out. And then they're like, yeah, well, let's call around. And it was 4 o'clock on a Friday. And apparently oral surgeons are like, sayonara, got better things to do. So I got to wake up and call wicked early on Monday morning. And then I got to schedule that in as fast as possible. One, stop the pain. But two, next weekend I got to be in Michigan. So if by some weird thing they're like, yes, we have an opening Wednesday when Fat Tire is going to be there, unfortunately I will have to miss it. I could send Jimmy, but I can't be there because I can't just be like, well, I'll just endure an extra week of incredible pain so that I can meet someone. Don't get me wrong, I do want to meet you, but that's where I'm at.
All right.
I do want to answer this question. Do ram's horn snails eat red flame swords? Because mine's getting hammered. Yes, they do. But they'll eat any plant that is not healthy. Most often with sword plants, they consume so much nutrients and then they start dying back, and then snails eat the dying back leaves. So the other thing is, like if you have a bristlenose plecostomus in with that sword plant, 100% it's that bristlenose plecostomus. They devastate sword plants. But usually with a sword plant, it is a lack of nutrients, and then it starts deteriorating a little bit, and then that snail goes, hey, that thing's dying. My job is to take care of that, so I will.
New word, though. Sword pants.
Sword pants? Yeah.
Sword pants.
Check out my sword pants.
Let's see. Are piano snails hard to keep?
Which ones?
Piano?
I don't know that common name. Let me
Okay.
Google it.
Okay.
Piano snail, huh?
Ever heard of a completely transparent ram's horn snail? I've seen some.
I don't know if
Right,
I've seen
but
completely,
pinkish. Yeah.
but really clear, yeah.
Have you found it?
What's that?
Have you found it?
No, it was...
Sid
talking.
Erickson says, how do I use Super Chat trying to give you monies?
The better way to give me money, by the way, is the Patreon. If you want to go to Patreon and donate $1, you can give to a good cause. One, I think we're decent cause to give to. But if you don't, you can at least give to other people. The goal is that a rising tide raises all ships, right? So if you give us $1 and then you give 2 other fish YouTubers $1, they will get some income and can put towards better equipment and stuff like that. The piano snail, I know it by a different name. I'm trying to remember what I see them. I think I see them on the list as freshwater turbo snails is what I see them.
Oh,
I've
that
only
sounds
ever
cool.
brought them in a couple of times. They never did well for me. I've talked to other people that brought them in. They didn't do that well for them. I suspect they want crazy hard water and would prefer brackish, but I think that is the actual case. That being said, I have very limited experience because they've never done well for me. So.
Okay. What kind of snails that are popular in the hobby are illegal to sell in Washington? Anything you wish was legal?
I'm not sure if there's any that are illegal to sell, like Spixie snails. Oh, okay, yeah. So Spixie snails can't legally be sold. They can be given away. They can't go across state lines, and you can't sell them, but you could give them away. So I think that's the one. That's kind of a cool one. Yeah.
Okay, we got a $2 super chat from Elijah Purrington. Oh, cool name. $2. What would you put in a Washington local species tank?
If I was doing it, I would do a tank full of the Olympic mud minnow. It's a stickleback. I can't legally collect them or anything like that, but if I was given that option, they're endangered, and Aquarius could definitely help that. But yeah, let me look it up because I remember looking it up because I was going to collect it with Gary Lang when he was here, but we had to like do it on an Indian reservation. It turns out the weather was too crappy to do it anyway. But if you look up the Olympic mud minnow, you'd be like, dang, that's kind of like a killifish looking thing. It looks all right, and that's in Washington here. Whoa! But they're endangered, so you can't even see a lot of them, and they're only in specific places. But I wouldn't mind working with that fish if I could find a way to do it legally, I guess.
Dominic with another $2 super chat. Other fish as small as a chili rasbora, he's super obsessed.
Pygmy rasbora. There's the strawberry rasbora. There's the Dracula rasbora, which is the smallest of it, but it's translucent. There's also like a miniature translucent goby that I can't remember the name off the top of my head. What else is there? There's like the blue neon rasbora. There are... what else is just as small?
Celestial pearl danios?
Yeah, but they're bigger. But yes, they're a
yeah.
nanofish, but they are bigger. Some of the pygmy hatchetfish are pretty darn small and cool. What else is in that really tiny vein? Ooh, the toothpick fish, micropredator. That thing's kind of cool.
Oh, it's a micropredator.
Yeah, so it has to eat like live baby brine and copepods and daphnia and that type of stuff. So it's kind of a pain to keep. But, yeah, I like it.
Little largemouth. Questions for Jimmy. Do you ever keep snails in your hobby? What kinds? Yeah, I kept MTSs and mysteries and stuff like that. But I really want those zebra ones that Jeremy Bosch had. I don't know what yeah, he had some zebra nerite or zebra something.
Yeah. We can get you some of those.
Yeah, I really want some of those.
Yeah.
Got to catch a super chat before it flies away.
Yeah.
Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Nancy Harbor, Corey, how do I get a volcano snail to breed? Got very hard water, 7.7.
Volcano snail. I gotta Google it. Okay. It makes it hard, like when it's street names, because a lot of times the store is like, yeah, it's called a volcano snail, and I might go, oh yeah, that's a blah blah blah.
That's a blah 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 blah.
All right.
Let's see.
So the first thing on Google is someone saying volcano snail ? What is this? I'm trying to find a picture of it.
While you do that, SR asked, would you guys eat snails? Yes, especially in coconut milk. It's really good.
I've never had it, so I would try it.
Yeah. Corey will try anything at least once or twice. So.
Yeah, I'll try and go, ooh, or, oh, that ain't bad. To me, Google is not being definitive, but it looks like a rabbit snail is the volcano snail, which would make sense if it's a Sulawesi snail from the volcano.
Yeah.
And the question was, how do you get it to breed? So you need boy and girl, so you got to have that. Usually they'll come pre-hit. Well, I don't know if it's boy and girl, but you need more than one. Usually they come pre-hit from the stores, and it just takes time, but they only have like one baby every 3 months, and it lives under the gravel for like the first 3 months. So you could have one and not even know you have it for like a long time. They're really slow, and that's what keeps their price expensive.
So that's why like one would just pop up and be like, where did that come from? And it's like this, like kind of big already.
Yeah, they'd be like an inch. Just like,
yeah.
Where'd that come from? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, Barbara Jackson with the $5 super chat. Is there anything fish or whatever that will eat snail eggs?
I would wager there is. I don't know it though. Like I bet you some plecos would and that kind of thing, but I've never really looked into that. So, being that I know nature, there has got to be like, oh yeah, that thing, it lives only off snail eggs. But whether that's in the hobby or not, I have no idea. There's got to be fish that do, though. I know it. Yeah.
All right, we got Senfin with a $500 Indian.
I don't know what Indian currency is.
Currency, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But it's Hi from India. Top to do and not to do checklist for a healthy snail colony.
Well, I would say the to-do is keep your pH above 7.5 for the most part. Have calcium in the water that snails can like absorb. So, well, not absorb, but you want calcium or hardness in the water so their shells don't dissolve into the water. But then also feed them a food so that they can eat some calcium, and that'll give them the building blocks to actually build more shell. Don't put them with fish that are going to pick at their like antennas all the time, because that just is going to make them hole up in their shell and never come out. And yeah, there's not a whole lot. I mean, they're really a pretty low-level creature, so they're pretty self-sufficient. But thank you for the super chat.
Sam Osborne, my fish have ick. Can my snails get it too?
So I don't know the official answer to that question. Some people say yes, some people say no. I don't know that I've ever transferred ick or anything like that with a snail, but I feel like it's definitely in that hobby. Well, it's better safe than sorry, but that's pure fear-mongering. I don't have any research or science behind that. It is known that snails can carry some parasites and some diseases. I have no idea if ick is actually one of those, though. So it's pure fear-mongering on my part going, well, I don't know.
Can you tell them again what kind of snails eat hydra?
Spixie snail. I'll spell that out.
Sure.
S-P-I-X-I snail. Spixie snail.
Let's see.
Any tips for getting nerites moving and eating from the... Wait. Antinwo fish? The Antinwo fish? I think that's what it is. Antinwo fish. Anyway. Usually when they don't move, it's one of two scenarios. Either A, your pH is too low, or B, there's a fish that's harassing it every time it comes out of its shell. Almost always it's one of those two things.
Cool. Life with Pets with the question here. What snails eat hair algae?
I don't know that any snail eats hair algae. They'll eat algae at the very lowest forms, like when it's just forming. They're really good at helping prevent hair algae from getting established. But I'm not sure there's a snail you could, like, let's say you had it all over the place like my Avatar tank. I'm not sure you could put a snail in there and be like, look, it's just gone. Like, I don't think that's going to happen. But they can really, like, if you were to remove it all and you put snails in there, I think that could really help for it to not come back.
So Senfun said they're rupees.
What's up?
The rupees.
Oh,
the
rupees?
currencies. Rupees.
Huh. Rupees.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That sounds right. I mean, he would know, right?
Yeah. No, I'm going to have to look that up. I don't believe him. Yeah.
Will dwarf rainbows eat baby snails?
Dwarf rainbows.
I'm guessing dwarf neon rainbows.
They might harass them a little bit, but I don't think so. I don't think I've really witnessed a problem with that. But yeah.
Let's see. $2 super chat from Elijah again. I like my name too. Thanks, fellow Ohioan. Oh, thanks, bud.
Super chat from Andrew Jesse. I have a planted shrimp tank with a pH of 6 to 6.2. Do any of the snails struggle at this pH, or are some better suited? GH is 6 to 7 with TDS of 145. I would say almost every snail will struggle at that. The one that would be able to do it, if I was going to say there was one could do it, Malaysian trumpet snails. Those things are going to survive a nuclear war.
Holy cow, we got 702 people watching.
What?
So 366 likes.
Yeah, well, people don't like snails. That's why they're not giving us a like. But they'll listen in and go, yeah, I hate them snails. Yeah, talk bad about them. Yeah, give it to them where it hurts.
This guy. Andrew Jesse with the $5
We got that one. Next one.
Okay, sorry. You read that one.
I did.
Okay.
I can read once in a while.
B-ball 34. I like the face you just gave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any ideas for a 50-gallon tank with neon tetras and cories? How many tiger barbs in a 29-gallon with 6 cories? So that's, I think, 2 separate
All right,
questions.
let me brain process that for a second.
Sure.
I got to read it again because that 50-gallon tank, it's got neons and cories. Okay.
Okay.
How many tiger barbs? Okay.
It's 2 separate questions.
Yeah, that's where my brain... Okay, so hold on. Any ideas for a 50-gallon tank with neons and cories?
Compute.
Okay, so that's one question. So we've got neons, we've got cories. how about a pair of apistogrammas? That would kind of spice it up with some, like, ooh, that's a unique looking fish. Look what it's doing type of deal. And then you could do something up top like, I actually really like leopard longfin danios. Maybe try something like that, or some hatchet fish. And then the second part of that was, how many tiger barbs in a 29-gallon tank with 6 cories? In a 29, I feel like I would do like 18 tiger barbs. And that's going to seem like it's a heavy load, but that will keep those tiger barbs, hopefully, less boisterous, like more as a pack and not singling each other out, and will behave overall better as a group than if you had 6, let's say. And what can happen is when you have 6 and you feed, you could have one dominant one taking all that food, and so you got to really overfeed to get them all food, when you might be able to have 18 and feed that same amount of food anyway, but since no one's dominating, you're not running into that problem. So it's kind of like, I could have 6 or I could have 18, and it's almost the same food to keep those things healthy. So
Cool. All right, Marcy Dem, she's been asking this for a while.
Okay.
Have you ever repaired a snail shell?
I haven't. I've read how to do it, where you use like clear nail polish and stuff like that. Like if you crack it, you can cover it. I don't think it ever repairs. Like I don't think you can actually make it better, but you can just not make it as bad, if that makes any sense. Like I don't think it's going to be like, oh, magically it grew enough calcium and it's fine. I think you can just be like, well, let's help carry out your life, but it doesn't revert.
Yeah, I would always want to repair my yellow rabbit snail sometimes, because there's the ones that crack and it looks kind of ugly. Cause
they want a lot of minerals for those. Yeah.
$5 super chat from Joanna Kramer. How many snails should I feed my pea puffers, and how often? I have 5-inch and heavily planted tank.
So we've got 5 of them in a 15-gallon flex.
5-inch.
So they never have to eat them. So that's a good thing about pea puffers. They don't really have the teeth problem, so it's not a have to. So I would say as many snails as they will eat. So pea puffers will kill them just to kill them. But if they eat them as often as you want, and they will eat them. So that might be like, yeah, I feed 3 a day, and they eat them. Where if you put in 10, they'll eat 3 and kill 7, and that's just rotting snails in there. That being said, I would still round out the diet with maybe some frozen brine shrimp, some frozen bloodworms. And the best thing to do, the reason why those snails would be useful, is to feed those snails like flake food and other dry foods that you couldn't normally get to your puffers, because they won't eat dry food typically. Get them eating that, and then you're gut loading your puffers and giving them extra nutrients. That's like the best way to utilize those snails. So
Okay. What is your opinion of bettas and snails together?
I like Malaysian trumpet snails in them. Anything with the really long antennas, though, it depends on the betta. Some bettas, well, I would say a majority of bettas kind of look at those antennas like they're worms, and they go, hey, I'm going to eat that, and I'm going to tear that right off. But then you got bettas that are just super chill and laid back. They're like, no, man, it's cool. Keep snailing around. It's cool.
Yeah.
And same thing with shrimp. Sometimes those go after them. Sometimes they're like, nah, let him live his own life.
Because I have a betta in this tank behind me, and a bunch of snails, and they seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, I think it's a, betta by betta basis.
Arsenal of Color Aquatics, $5 super chat. Power to the beard. I want to see homeless. I want to see homeless Corey and get Greg Sage on Patreon. Would you feed a mystery snail to any puffer smaller than a maboo?
Yeah, like a Faka puffer. I feel like a Faka puffer could take it down. I've never tried it with like a hairy puffer or the Congo puffer, because you want them to be able to go through the shell. Like if they're not going through the shell, it's kind of a waste in my opinion. You may as well have fed bloodworms. But a Faka puffer could probably take it down. A decent size. Like don't feed a Faka puffer this big, a snail that big. Like that's just not going to work. But like you got, oh yeah, I got a decent sized Faka puffer. That could work.
Will fenbendazole kill any snails besides neorites?
I don't have enough testing to know that, but I suspect that it is detrimental to almost all snails. But I don't have enough testing. I've been playing with flubendazole, and I have been doing some testing, but I don't want to give like a yes or no answer. It becomes gospel when I've done so limited testing that I can't. It's mostly guessing at this point.
Nancy Marsh just got her snails from me yesterday. They're
Good.
awesome.
Good. Yeah, we've been, Robert's been telling me, like, we got to order more snails, man. We're running out. I'm like, really?
When I first came to Washington, and the day you guys were packing stuff, and people were ordering MTS like crazy, I was like, wow. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
We do sell a lot of snails, but they're really good, And, well, And we do a lot of care. You know, we actually feed them a lot of calcium. We try to do a lot of things to keep our snails healthy. And I think it's just our overall work ethic. People go, well, if I'm going to get snails, I'm going to get them from the co-op. And we appreciate that. That's the best way you could support us. And, you know, people have been telling me more and more lately, like, you got to get back to asking people just to buy from you. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. So if you guys could do me a favor and buy stuff from my website, that would be great. It helps, like, I don't know, it always sounds dumb, but, like, it helps pay for Jimmy. It helps pay to keep the lights on. It helps pay all my employees. It helps, you know, it helps. If you're going to buy a bottle of Prime and you can choose from Amazon or you can choose from me, all your money will go straight back into trying to entertain you and help you. I guarantee that. Versus Amazon, you know, like it just goes to buying more product. And, you know, so if you like what we do, consider buying from us when possible. I'm not saying only buy from us or anything like that, but when it makes sense, maybe consider us. By the way, I forgot there's a code and there's a sale.
Is that t-shirt thing still going on?
I think they all got used up, but you could try it. We did last night on Facebook. There was a code that was $shirt, and it basically meant you got the shirt for $1, and you had to pay shipping. So if you order other stuff, it's a great deal. We sold some shirts. I don't know if there's any left, but $shirt can get, you know, it was limited to 10 people, so there might be like 2 or 3 left. You guys might try it if you're looking for a shirt. And then Aqua 10 gets you 10% off everything. And then on top of that, we have heaters on sale. So all heaters are on sale at 15% off, and temperature controllers. So if you're into that kind of stuff, we got that going on. And if you're not into any of that, maybe you just need some food, or you know, I don't know what you need, but you probably need something. I'll tell you that right now. I'm looking at you. You need something. Self-evaluate and fix that.
I feel like you were staring into my soul for a second.
That's what I did. I do that. I get you with the stole.
What camera do I use? We use multiple cameras. It's kind of hard to just.
We're trying to make a switch to iPhone 8s, but turns out
by the way, I love
there's no way to render it. The technology is so advanced we can't even. We've got video. I shot videos with the iPhone 8, and there's no possible way to render it out yet because Final Cut Pro doesn't have that codec yet. So we wait. We've got videos just sitting there going, literally nothing can view them except for the phone.
It's 101. Do you want to wrap this up, or
we should wrap this up because I have other engagements. I have consultations I have to do. I've scheduled them for this Saturday. So not that I'm putting the giant sales pitch on, but if you guys do need my specific help, I do business consulting as well as hobbyist consulting. They are different rates. We do book time. It's not an unlimited thing, by the way. It's not like I have like unlimited amounts of time, but I do make as much time as I can to try and help you guys and really get in depth on your specific tank or your specific problem. Or, you know, if you're really serious about starting a fish business, I can actually provide real steps more than just what my videos have done and actually mentor you a bit. It's not cheap, but time is money for me, and you know, if I'm going to do stuff for free, I'll do it in this format and help as many people as I can, as much as I can, and we answer comments on Facebook and YouTube and emails and all that kind of stuff. So that's just a way of like, oh man, it's time sensitive, or I really need Corey's ear for an hour or whatever it is. And but if you're going to do one thing at all today, go download, hit the subscribe button. Get set up to be listening to our podcast. I'm going to make... You're breaking stuff over there. I can see it. I'm going to make some magical stuff happen on that podcast coming up. And there's going to be some exclusive giveaways and all kinds of fun stuff. So I don't want to hear anyone complaining like, well, I didn't know. I didn't think he was serious. Trust me. I'm going all in on this podcast thing. And it's going to be a place you want to be at if you like awesome stuff, whether it's free or just awesome. It's going to be there. Speaking of which, I will be at the Aquatic Experience in November. I've already got my merchandise being made. It'll be getting shipped. We'll be doing a little bit more planning, but I know me, Bob, Creative Pet Keeping, Flip Aquatics, Lucas at LR Brett's, Zanzo's Tanks, Corvus Ocean, Aquapros, Flynn. I know there's more, but that's where my brain can go at this point. You know, no slights to anyone that I didn't name. It's just, you know, there's only so many things you can name off the top of your head so fast. So, Kyle Weltner says, I need help with my YouTube name and AdSense. Is that a business consultation? It is, Kyle, because the goal of that will be to make you a lot of money. So far, I think you could, if you were able to, ask any of my business consults, they've all made way more money than they've invested. And it's just because typically I don't want to talk about a subject I don't know. And so, like, that realm I'm pretty darn good in, I feel like. And, you know, an investment of like $200 for an hour, we could really lay out some good things for your, you know, your YouTube channel, a name, AdSense, branding, all that kind of stuff. And it's not that how do I say this? It's not that I need the money, but I have to put a filter, right? So like if I was like, yeah, let's do it for free, then literally like 1,000 people, that's all they want to do. And then they're all angry when I won't do it for them, and I can't do everyone. So it's one of those things like that. It helps filter out the people that are like crazy serious. In my starting career, I was paying about $500 an hour, you know, to some other big creators, and that's how I learned a bunch really quick. You can also learn everything for free as well, though. I mean, time is all it takes. So you could spend time, research. You know, I spend lots of time every week researching every change. The fact that, you know, Social Blade now does Twitch and stuff like that. Like, stuff's always changing. If you're not constantly on top of it, you can't take advantage of stuff. And yeah, so it would be. It's not a hobbyist thing there, because YouTube is a business. So yeah, that's what I got for you.
All right, guys. So
we will not be live next week because we'll be in Michigan.
Okay.
But
we might be live on another channel, maybe. But
could be.
We'll
could
see.
happen. Don't know what's happening there, but we'll either be live on this channel or the Jimmy of Aquarium Co-op channel. Subscribe there if you haven't already. We were live already once this week. Plus, videos come out, things happen, shenanigans get done. And, yeah, hop over to the Patreon. You don't even have to be a patron, but you could weigh in on some of the topics. Like the latest one that's on there is, what do you guys want to see shows about? Go over there and talk with others and upvote and plan. Like today was Snails, because people wanted Snails. And so we made Snails happen.
All right, guys. See you later.
Goodbye, and thank you for hanging out. Leave a like on the way out, and check out the other fish creators while you're at it. You know, I might be going off on a tangent, but someone's got something out there that you want to see. I promise you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.